Finally! That satisfying whisper slid from Brittany Cole's glossy red lips the exact second William Sullivan's heart monitor flatlined. She stood in the hospital doorway, watching Emma collapse over her dying father's chest, and she smiled. Then she pulled out her phone and texted Derek. "It's done. The old man is dead. Courthouse tomorrow morning. Don't be late." Derek Mitchell read that text while his pregnant wife sobbed over her father's corpse 20 feet away. He typed back, "Wear the red dress. The one I bought you in Miami." 24 hours later, Emma stood at her father's grave placing yellow roses on fresh dirt, while her husband signed a marriage license to marry the woman who had celebrated her father's death. But what Derek didn't know, what Brittany couldn't possibly imagine, was that the broke janitor they'd been waiting to die had left his daughter $5.2 billion. Subscribe now and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far Emma's story travels. This is the moment everything satisfies. The call came at 3:47 a.m. Emma fumbled for her phone in the darkness, her pregnant belly making every movement awkward. The screen glowed harsh and white against the night. "Mrs. Mitchell, Northwestern Memorial. Your father has taken a turn. Come now." She was already out of bed before the woman finished. Her hands found clothes in the dark, pulling on the first thing she touched her father's old flannel shirt that she'd stolen from his closet months ago because it smelled like him. "Derek." She shook her husband's shoulder. "Wake up, it's my dad." He groaned and pulled the pillow over his face. "What time is it?" "Almost 4. I have to go. The hospital said to come now." Now. He still didn't move, didn't open his eyes. "Emma, I have that presentation tomorrow, the Henderson account. Can't this wait until morning?" She stared at him in the darkness. This man she'd married. This man who was supposed to love her. This man who couldn't even open his eyes while her father was dying. "He might not make it to morning, Derek." "Fine. Text me updates." He rolled over, turning his back to her. "And try not to wake me when you come home." Emma stood there for 5 full seconds waiting for him to change his mind, to get up, to be the husband she needed. He started snoring. She drove to the hospital alone, her hands shaking on the wheel, her father's flannel wrapped around her shoulders, like the only comfort left in the world. The ICU was cold, sterile, the kind of place where hope came to die. A nurse met her at the entrance. "Room 412. The doctor wants to speak with you, but your father asked to see you first. He's been waiting." "Waiting?" "He refused his pain medication an hour ago, said he needed to be clear, said there were things he had to tell you." Emma's heart clenched. She walked faster. Room 412. The door was slightly open. She pushed through and stopped. Her father lay in the bed surrounded by machines that beeped and hissed, tubes running into his arms like puppet strings. He'd always been solid strong, the kind of man who could lift her onto his shoulders when she was 5 and carry her for miles without breaking a sweat. Now he looked hollowed out, used up, like death was already moving in, just waiting for the formalities. But his eyes were still her daddy's eyes, sharp, knowing, full of love so deep it hurt to look at. "There's my girl." His voice was gravel wrapped in whispers. "I knew you'd come." "Of course I came." She rushed to his side, took his hand, felt how thin it had become. "Daddy, you should have taken your medication," the nurse said. "The nurse doesn't know what I know." He squeezed her fingers with surprising strength. "Sit down, Emma. We don't have much time, and there are things I need to tell you. Things I should have told you years ago." "You're scaring me." "Good. You need to be scared right now. Scared enough to really listen." He struggled to sit up, and she moved to help him, adjusting pillows, smoothing sheets. "Where's Derek?" The question hit her like ice water. "He couldn't come. Work." "At 4 in the morning." "Daddy." "Don't lie to me, Emma. Not now. Not when we're out of time for lies." His eyes bore into hers. "He didn't want to come, did he?" She couldn't answer. The truth was a stone in her throat. "I knew it." William's jaw tightened. "I've known for months. The way he looks at you. The way he sighs when you talk about the baby. The way he checked his watch 17 times during my last birthday dinner. He's just stressed. He's already gone, Emma. In his mind, he left you months ago. He's just waiting for permission to make it official. That's not true. But her voice shook, because somewhere deep inside, in the part of her heart she'd been trying to silence, she knew. She'd seen it too. The distance in his eyes, the excuses that came too quickly, the late nights that stretched into early mornings. Listen to me. William pulled her closer. 3 weeks ago, Derek came to see me. Emma's breath stopped. What? You were at your prenatal appointment, the ultrasound, the one where you found out you're having a girl. He told me he couldn't come. He said he had a meeting. He came here instead. William's voice hardened. He sat in that chair right there, the one you're sitting in now, and he asked me questions. What kind of questions? He asked if I had life insurance. He asked if I had any savings. He asked how long the doctors said I had left. William's eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. He asked me if dying was expensive, if it would be a burden on you. On him. Emma felt sick. Maybe he was just worried about the medical bills. He was calculating Emma. I've seen that look before. I know what it means when a man starts running numbers in his head about a woman's worth. He gripped her hand tighter. And then he asked me the question that told me everything I needed to know. What question? He asked if you were the sole beneficiary of my estate. And when I told him I was just a janitor, that I didn't have any estate, he actually smiled. He looked relieved, Emma. Relieved that you would have nothing when I died. The room spun. Emma grabbed the bed rail to steady herself. Why would he be relieved about that? Because it makes you easier to leave. William's voice cracked. If you have nothing, you're not worth fighting for. If you have nothing, he can walk away clean. No lawyers, no complications. Just a poor pregnant widow he can pay off with child support and never think about again. Daddy, stop. I'm not finished. He reached under his pillow and pulled out an envelope. White, pristine, sealed with red wax. After he left that day, I made some phone calls. I called my attorney. I changed my will. I restructured everything. What are you talking about? What attorney? You're a janitor. No, Emma. He pressed the envelope into her hands. I'm not. The machines beeped. Outside, the hospital was waking up. Carts rolling, voices murmuring. The world going on like it didn't know everything was about to change. My name isn't William Sullivan. I mean, it is now. I've been William Sullivan for 35 years, but I was born William Harrison Sullivan III. Emma shook her head. I don't understand. Sullivan Industrial Holdings. Look it up sometime. My grandfather started it in 1932, manufacturing, steel, shipping, real estate. By the time my father died, the company was worth $3 billion, and I was supposed to inherit all of it. Daddy, the medication is making you confused. I'm not confused. His voice was stronger now than it had been in weeks. I'm finally telling you the truth. I was the heir to an empire, Emma. The golden boy. The future of the Sullivan dynasty. And I threw it all away when I was 23 years old. Why? Because I met your mother. His face softened in a way Emma had seen 1,000 times. That look he got whenever he spoke about the woman who had died giving Emma life. The woman Emma had never known, but had loved her whole life through her father's stories. Sarah. She was a teacher at a little school in Michigan. I met her at a charity event my family was hosting. She was there as a volunteer serving food to rich people, while they wrote checks to make themselves feel important. She was wearing a blue dress. She had a laugh like bells ringing. And the moment I saw her, I knew. Knew what? That she was worth more than everything my family had ever built. That she was my real life. That nothing else mattered. But your family. My family hated her. My mother especially. Called her a gold digger. Said she was beneath us. said she'd never be accepted. They gave me an ultimatum, Emma. Choose. The family and the money, or her. And you chose her. I didn't even hesitate. He smiled through the pain. I walked away from $3 billion and never looked back. Changed my name, moved to Chicago, got a job mopping floors at Lincoln Elementary because it was the first job I could find that didn't care about my pedigree. But the money? I never touched it, never wanted to. But I didn't give it up either. I let it sit, let it grow, let my cousin Harold manage it through the years. His eyes found hers. I was saving it, Emma. For you. The room was spinning again. Emma couldn't breathe. How much? $5.2 billion. The number didn't register. It couldn't. It was too big. Too impossible. Too far from everything Emma had ever known about her life. That's not possible. We grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment. You ate ramen for dinner every night so I could have ballet lessons. You drove a car that broke down every other week. You worked Christmas shifts so I could have presents. Because I wanted you to grow up knowing what matters. Tears were streaming down his face now. Not money, not status, not things. Love, integrity, character. The things that make a person truly wealthy no matter what's in their bank account. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to marry someone who loved you. Not your trust fund, not your inheritance, you. He squeezed her hand so hard it hurt. But I failed, Emma. I watched you marry Derek Mitchell, and I told myself it would be okay. I told myself he loved you. But he doesn't. He never did. And now I'm dying, and I can't protect you anymore by keeping secrets. I can only protect you by telling the truth. The machines were beeping faster now. A nurse appeared in the doorway, concern on her face. Mr. Sullivan, your heart rate. Give me 5 more minutes. William's voice was commanding in a way Emma had never heard. Like he was used to being obeyed. 5 more minutes with my daughter. The nurse hesitated, then nodded and withdrew. In my apartment. William continued, his words coming faster now, like he was racing against time. Bedroom closet, top shelf, old Nike shoebox, the one from when I ran that marathon. I remember it. False bottom. Under the metal there's a key. First National Bank. Safety deposit box 1247. Everything you need is in there. The documents, the account numbers, the contact information for Harold and the legal team. Daddy? But Emma, listen to me. He pulled her close, his breath rattling. Derek is going to leave you. Probably soon. Probably the moment I'm gone. He's going to walk out that door thinking he's escaping a poor janitor's daughter, thinking he's moving on to something better. You don't know that. I do know that. I've seen it in his eyes. I've heard it in his voice. His grip tightened. And when he leaves, I need you to let him go. What? Don't fight. Don't beg. Don't try to change his mind. Just let him go. Sign whatever papers he gives you. Walk away clean. But why? Because I want him to live the rest of his miserable life knowing exactly what he threw away. I want him to see you rise. I want him to watch you become everything he said you'd never be. I want him to choke on his regret every single day until he dies. William's eyes were fierce now, burning with a fire that seemed to push back against death itself. That's the Sullivan way, Emma. We don't destroy our enemies. We simply become so magnificent that they destroy themselves watching. A sob tore from Emma's throat. I don't want revenge. I just want you. I want you to stay. I want you to meet your granddaughter. I've already met her. He placed his hand on Emma's belly, gentle, reverent. I've felt her kick. I've talked to her every night you visited. I've told her about her grandmother Sarah and how she has her nose and how she's going to be fierce and strong and kind, just like her mama. Daddy, please. I love you, Emma. More than $3 billion. More than $5 billion. More than all the money in the world. His voice was fading now, his grip loosening. You are my greatest treasure. You always have been. The machines started screaming. Nurses rushed in, then doctors. They pushed Emma back, surrounded the bed, shouted words she couldn't understand. She stood in the corner, her hand pressed against the wall, watching her father fight his last battle. And then, at 6:23 a.m., on a Tuesday morning, William Harrison Sullivan III took his final breath. Emma didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked to the bed past the doctors, who were already stepping back, and she took her father's hand. Still warm. Still her daddy's hand. "I promise," she whispered. "I'll find the box. I'll go to the bank. I'll trust the plan." She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "And when he leaves me, I'll remember. I'll remember that I'm never alone. I'm never poor. I'm never powerless." The tears came then, silent and endless. "I just wish you could be there to see it." She stayed with him for an hour, the nurse's letter. Maybe they understood. Maybe they'd seen enough death to know when someone needed time. Finally, she walked out of the hospital into the morning sun. Her phone had 17 messages. 16 were from people she didn't care about. One was from Derek. "Hey, babe. How's your dad? I've got meetings all day. Probably won't be able to make it to the hospital. Text me if anything changes." Emma stared at the message. Her father was dead. Derek was in meetings. And somewhere in a safety deposit box across town, $5 billion was waiting for her. She deleted his message without responding and drove to her father's apartment. The apartment was exactly as he'd left it. Coffee cup in the sink. Newspaper on the table. Everything worn but clean, loved, but humble. The home of a man who could have had everything, but chose simplicity instead. Emma went straight to the bedroom closet. The Nike shoebox was right where he'd said it would be. She pulled it down, her hands trembling. Inside was the marathon medal, the newspaper clipping about his finish time, and underneath, just as he'd promised, a false bottom. The key was small, silver, ordinary looking, but it felt heavy in Emma's hand. Heavy with secrets and promises and a future she couldn't imagine. She put it in her pocket and sat on her father's bed, surrounded by his things, breathing in the fading smell of him. Her phone buzzed. "Derek, heard from the hospital that your dad passed. That's rough, babe. I'm stuck in these meetings, but I'll try to get home early. We should probably talk about funeral arrangements. Don't forget to cancel his utilities, so we're not paying for nothing." Don't forget to cancel his utilities. Her father had been dead for 3 hours, and Derek was worried about the electric bill. Emma turned off her phone. She wasn't ready to deal with him yet. Not until she knew more. Not until she understood exactly what her father had left her. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in her father's bed, wrapped in his blankets, staring at the ceiling and replaying every word he'd said. $5 billion. Sullivan Industrial Holdings. An irrevocable trust that Derek could never touch. It still felt like a dream. A fever hallucination. The desperate fantasy of a dying man who wanted to believe he could still protect his daughter. But the key in her pocket was real. The envelope was real. The look in her father's eyes when he'd told her the truth was real. At 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and opened her laptop. Sullivan Industrial Holdings. The search results filled the screen. Wikipedia article. Forbes profiles. Business Insider features. News stories going back decades. She clicked on the Wikipedia page first. Sullivan Industrial Holdings is an American multinational conglomerate founded in 1932 by Harrison Sullivan. Originally, a steel manufacturing company, SIH has expanded into shipping, real estate technology, and financial services. As of 2024, the company is valued at approximately $12 billion, with controlling shares held by the Sullivan Family Trust. Emma scrolled down to the family section. Harrison Sullivan, founder, married Elizabeth Montgomery in 1930. They had two sons, Harrison Sullivan Jr., 1932 to 2001, and Robert Sullivan, 1935 to 1989. Harrison Jr. married Catherine Wells in 1955. They had one son, William Harrison Sullivan III, born 1960. There was a photograph. Emma's breath caught. The man in the picture was young, maybe 22 or 23, wearing an expensive suit and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He was standing in front of a building with Sullivan Tower engraved above the entrance. But the eyes, the shape of the jaw, the way his head tilted slightly to the left. It was her father, younger, richer, but unmistakably him. William Harrison Sullivan III was the sole heir to the Sullivan fortune. In 1983, at age 23, he severed all ties with the family and disappeared from public life. His whereabouts remained unknown until his death in 2024. Sullivan's departure triggered a succession crisis that was eventually resolved when management of the company passed to his cousin Harold Ashford Sullivan. Emma read the paragraph 3 times. Her father hadn't been lying, hadn't been confused, hadn't been hallucinating. He'd been telling the truth. She was the daughter of a billionaire, the granddaughter of an empire, the heir to a fortune so vast she couldn't comprehend it. And her husband, the man who had abandoned her at the hospital, the man who was probably sleeping peacefully right now while she drowned in grief, had no idea. Emma closed the laptop. Tomorrow she would go to the bank. Tonight, she needed to grieve. The funeral was 3 days later. Emma planned everything herself. Derek offered to help, but his offers were hollow, punctuated by sighs and glances at his phone, so she stopped asking. She chose yellow roses because they were her father's favorite. She chose the plot at Oakwood Cemetery because it was near a bench where they used to sit together when she was little, feeding pigeons and talking about nothing important. She wrote the eulogy herself because no one else knew him well enough to speak. The morning of the funeral was gray and cold rain threatening, but not yet falling. Emma wore black, a simple dress, her father's flannel shirt underneath because she couldn't bear to be without something of his. Derek complained that the shirt looked unprofessional. She didn't respond. At the cemetery, 37 people gathered around the grave, co-workers from the school, neighbors who remembered her father's kindness. A few distant relatives she barely recognized. Derek stood beside her holding an umbrella over his own head. Not hers. He checked his phone during the preacher's opening prayer. He yawned during the Lord's Prayer. He looked at his watch when Emma stood to deliver the eulogy. She spoke about her father's hands, how they could fix anything, how they held her when she cried, how they worked 35 years mopping floors and never once complained. She didn't mention the billions, didn't mention the empire he'd walked away from. That was their secret, hers and her father's. One final gift. When the casket was lowered into the ground, Emma placed a single yellow rose on top. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I'll make you proud." Behind her, Derek's phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer it. Mrs. Chen, her father's longtime colleague from the school, approached Emma with tears in her eyes. "Your daddy was the finest man I ever knew. 35 years we worked together, and never once did I hear him speak an unkind word about anyone." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen." The old woman leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He told me something a few weeks back, said you were stronger than you knew, said you were about to need every bit of that strength." She squeezed Emma's hand. "Whatever's coming, honey, you've got your daddy's steel in you. Don't let anyone make you forget that." Before Emma could respond, Mrs. Chen moved away, leaving those words hanging in the air like a prophecy. Emma turned to find Derek. He was standing by a silver Mercedes parked at the edge of the cemetery, talking on his phone, his back to the grave. And then she saw her. A woman stepping out of the Mercedes, tall, blonde, red coat that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. She walked toward Derek with the confident stride of someone who owned whatever room she entered. Derek saw her coming and smiled. Emma had seen that smile 1,000 times, but never directed at her. Not anymore. Not for months. The woman in the red coat reached Derek and touched his arm. Familiar. Possessive. The touch of someone who had touched him many times before. Derek glanced back at the funeral at Emma, and then he leaned down and kissed the woman's cheek. At his father-in-law's funeral. With his pregnant wife watching. He kissed another woman. The rain finally started to fall. Emma stood at her father's grave watching her husband kiss his mistress and felt something inside her turn to ice. Derek returned 5 minutes later, pocketing his phone. "Hey, I need to head out. Client emergency." "Client emergency." "Yeah, the Henderson account. There's a problem with the contract. I've got to handle it." "I saw her, Derek." He froze. Just for a second. Then his face smoothed into practiced innocence. "Saw who?" "The woman in the red coat. The one you just kissed." "Oh, that's Brittany. She's my boss. She just stopped by to offer condolences." "Your boss?" "Yeah. She's been really supportive through all this. You know, with your dad and everything." Emma stared at him. This man she had married. This man she had trusted. This man who was lying to her face at her father's funeral. "Go." "What?" "Go handle your client emergency. I'll be fine." Derek hesitated like he was waiting for a trap. Then he shrugged. "Okay. I'll see you at home later. Maybe order some food or something. I don't know when I'll be back." He turned and walked away without looking back, without saying goodbye to her father, without acknowledging that his wife had just buried the only family she had left. Emma watched him get into the silver Mercedes. Brittany was driving. They pulled away together. And Emma stood in the rain, her hand on her belly, and made a silent promise to the father she had just buried. "I see him now, Daddy. I finally see him. And I won't forget what you told me." That night alone in the house she shared with Derek, Emma finally looked at what she'd been avoiding. She opened Instagram on her phone. She searched for Brittany Cole. The profile was public. Of course it was. Women like her wanted to be seen. The first photo was from 3 hours ago. Brittany in a restaurant, a glass of champagne in her hand, smiling at the camera. The caption, "Sometimes the best days come from the hardest goodbyes. Grateful for new beginnings." The hardest goodbyes. Her father's funeral. Brittany was celebrating her father's death. Emma kept scrolling. There were more photos. So many more. Brittany at a beach house. Brittany at a concert. Brittany in what was clearly a hotel room, the bed strategically out of frame, but the implication clear. And in photo after photo there was Derek. His arm around her waist. His lips near her ear. His hand in places that should have belonged to his wife. The oldest photo Emma could find was from 8 months ago. 8 months. Derek had been sleeping with his boss for 8 months. Through her father's diagnosis. Through her pregnancy announcement. Through every moment Emma had believed they were building a life together. She found a photo from 6 weeks ago. Derek and Brittany at a jewelry store. Brittany's hand extended toward the camera, a diamond ring glittering on her finger. The caption, "When you know, practice makes perfect." Practice. Emma's engagement ring had come from a mall kiosk because Derek said they couldn't afford anything better. But for Brittany, he'd gone to a jewelry store. For Brittany, he'd practiced. Emma put down her phone very carefully. She walked to the bathroom very calmly. And then she threw up until there was nothing left. When she was finished, she looked at herself in the mirror. Red eyes. Pale skin. Her father's flannel shirt hanging off her shoulders. Her pregnant belly pushing against the fabric. She looked broken. Defeated. Destroyed. Good. Let them think that. Let Derek think she was weak. Let Brittany think she had won. Because tomorrow, Emma was going to open that safety deposit box. And then everything would change. Derek came home at 2 a.m. smelling like perfume that wasn't Emma's. He didn't try to hide it. Didn't shower. Didn't make excuses. just crawled into bed beside her like nothing had happened. "We need to talk tomorrow," he mumbled. "Important stuff." Emma kept her breathing even, kept her eyes closed, kept her voice steady. "Sure." "Cool. Night, babe." He was asleep within minutes. Emma lay awake until dawn. At 8 a.m. she got a text. "Derek, be home at 9. We need to talk. Make sure you're there." Make sure you're there, like she was a dog who might wander off. She showered, dressed, put on actual clothes instead of her father's flannel, though she kept the key in her pocket close to her heart. She made coffee she didn't drink. She waited. Derek arrived at 9:17, late as always. Power play as always. He was carrying a manila folder. Emma knew what that meant before he even sat down. So, he pulled out a chair across from her at the kitchen table. Their kitchen table, where they'd eaten breakfast together, where they'd talked about baby names, where they'd pretended to be happy. "This is going to be hard to hear, but I think we both know our marriage isn't working." Emma said nothing. "I've done a lot of thinking." Derek's voice was practiced, rehearsed. He'd probably said these words to Brittany first, gotten feedback on his delivery. "About what I want. About where I'm going. And I just don't see you in that picture anymore." Emma said nothing. "I want a divorce, Emma." She looked at him. This man she had married. This man she had loved. This man who was discarding her like trash one day after her father's funeral. "Okay." He blinked. "Okay. Is that the paperwork?" Yeah." He slid the folder across the table, clearly thrown off by her lack of resistance. "My lawyer drew it up. It's pretty straightforward. You keep the apartment. I'll pay child support. We split the debt 50-50. "The debt?" "Yeah, you know, credit cards, car payment, the loan we took out for the kitchen renovation." Emma almost laughed. The loan they took out. The loan she hadn't known about until the bills started arriving. The loan Derek had taken in both their names without her knowledge or consent. "Fine." "Fine?" Derek stared at her. "That's it. You're not going to fight me." "Do you want me to fight you, Derek?" No, of course not. I just..." He shook his head. "I expected this to be harder. Why would I fight for someone who doesn't want me?" The question hung in the air. Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Look, Emma, I didn't want it to be like this. But Brittany and we connect on a level you and I never did. She's successful, ambitious, going places. She understands the life I want to build. And what kind of life is that? A real life." He leaned forward suddenly, passionate in a way he never was about her. "She's got contacts, Emma. Connections. With Brittany, I can finally become someone, not just a sales rep, not just a middle manager, someone important." "I see. You're a good person, you really are. But let's be honest, you were never going to be enough for the life I want. You're a janitor's daughter. Your dad mopped floors for a living. You think that's the kind of background that opens doors." Every word was a knife. "So that's what this is about, my father's job. It's about everything. Your job, your family, your lack of ambition. You were going to hold me back, Emma. You and this baby were going to anchor me to a life I never wanted." "The baby." Emma's hand went to her belly. "Your daughter." "I'll pay child support. I told you, I'm not a monster, but I can't stay in a marriage that's dragging me down." Emma looked at this man, really looked at him, saw him clearly for the first time, small, greedy, pathetic. Her father had known, had seen through him from the beginning, had spent his last weeks making sure Derek could never touch what really mattered. "I'll sign the papers. Today? Today." Derek's face broke into a smile so genuine it hurt. He was happy, relieved, free. "Thank you, Emma, for being reasonable about this. I know it's hard, but someday you'll see this is for the best." "I'm sure I will." He stood up, already reaching for his phone. "I'll tell Brittany. She'll be relieved. She was worried you might make this difficult. Give Brittany my congratulations." "For what?" "For winning." Derek smiled. He actually smiled. "Yeah, I guess she did win, didn't she?" He walked to the door. "Oh, one more thing." He turned back, an afterthought. "Your dad's funeral costs. I'm not paying for those. You should use whatever he left you, assuming he left anything which you know. He was just a janitor." He laughed at his own joke and walked out. Emma sat very still for a very long time. Then she picked up the divorce papers. She read every page. She found a pen, and she signed her name on every line. Then she put the papers in an envelope, addressed it to Derek's lawyer, and placed it by the door. She was free now, free to become who she was meant to be. 1 hour later, she walked into First National Bank. The lobby was marble and hushed, the kind of place where money spoke in whispers. Emma approached the front desk, acutely aware of how she must look. Tired, pregnant, grief-stained. Not the kind of woman who usually walked into places like this. "I need to access safety deposit box 1247. The teller typed something into her computer. Then her hands froze. "One moment, please." Her voice had changed. Softer, more respectful. "I need to get the manager." The manager appeared within minutes. Silver hair, expensive suit. The practiced smile of someone who handled other people's fortunes. "Miss Sullivan?" "Mrs. Mitchell. Actually..." Emma paused. "Sullivan. Emma Sullivan." "Of course. Please follow me." He led her to a private room in the back of the bank. Soundproofed walls, heavy doors, the kind of place where secrets were kept. "We've been expecting you," he said. "Your father called us 3 weeks ago, made all the arrangements." "You knew my father?" "I knew of him. Gerald Whitmore, branch manager. Your father's attorney, Mr. Ashford, has been our primary contact for years. The family business, you understand." Family business. The word still felt foreign. The manager opened the safety deposit box with 2 keys, then withdrew. "Take all the time you need, Miss Sullivan. When you're finished, press the button by the door." He left her alone. Emma stared at the box for a full minute before she could bring herself to open it. Inside was the envelope her father had shown her. White, pristine, his initials in the wax seal. Beneath it, documents. So many documents. Stock certificates, property deeds, bank statements with numbers so large they looked fake. She opened the envelope first. Her father's handwriting. The last words he would ever write to her. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're standing in a bank vault trying to make sense of something that probably feels impossible. First, let me tell you what you already know. You are loved. You have always been loved. You will always be loved. Death doesn't change that. Now let me tell you what you don't know. I was born William Harrison Sullivan III, heir to Sullivan Industrial Holdings. I walked away from that life when I was 23 because I met your mother and knew instantly that she was worth more than any fortune. I never regretted it. Not once. Not when we lived in that tiny apartment. Not when I mopped floors for 35 years. Not when I ate ramen for dinner so you could have ballet lessons. You were my treasure, Emma. My only treasure. And I wanted you to grow up knowing what really matters. But I also wanted you protected. So I kept the money. Let it grow. Let Harold manage it. Waited for the day you would need it. That day has come. In this box, you'll find documentation for everything. The trust, the accounts, the properties, the stocks. Harold will explain the details, but here's what matters. As of last month, your net worth is approximately $5.2 billion. And it's all yours. Every penny. Protected in an irrevocable trust that Derek Mitchell can never touch. I know what he did, Emma. I know he came to see me 3 weeks ago and calculated your worth like you were a business investment. I know he's going to leave you. I know he's going to break your heart. And I need you to let him. Don't fight. Don't beg. Don't waste a single tear trying to keep a man who was never worthy of you. Just let him go. Sign the papers. Walk away clean. Let him think he's escaping poverty for something better. And then when you're ready, rise. Build something beautiful. Help people who feel powerless like you feel right now. Show the world what a Sullivan can do. And when Derek sees you on the cover of Forbes, when Brittany realizes she traded a billionaire for a sales rep, when they're both choking on regret so thick they can't breathe. Smile, baby girl. Smile and keep walking. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. The best revenge is becoming so magnificent that your enemies destroy themselves. Trust the plan. I love you forever. Daddy. Emma read the letter 3 times. Then she pulled out the documents. Stock certificates from Sullivan Industrial Holdings, property deeds for buildings in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, bank statements from accounts in Switzerland, the Cayman, Singapore. The numbers blurred together. Millions, hundreds of millions, billions. At the bottom of the box was a business card. Robert Ashford Sullivan Esq., Sullivan & Associates, Managing Partner. And a handwritten note. Call me the moment you're ready. Your father was my hero. Your family. Let me help. Emma pulled out her phone. She dialed the number. It rang once. Emma. The voice was warm, professional but kind. I've been waiting for your call. My name is Robert. Your father was my uncle. That makes us cousins. And I have so much to tell you. Emma closed her eyes, took a breath, and stepped into her new life. I'm ready, she said. Tell me everything. 3 hours later, she walked out of the bank. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Beautiful. Indifferent. The world going on like it didn't know everything had changed. Her phone buzzed. Derek. Got your signed papers. Thanks for making this easy. Brittany says hi. We're celebrating tonight. Don't wait up, LOL. Emma stared at the message. Don't wait up. For a man who had never waited for her, who had spent months planning his escape, who had kissed his mistress at her father's funeral and thought he was clever. She typed back, Congratulations on your new life. I hope you find everything you're looking for. His response was immediate. Thanks, babe. Glad we can be adults about this. You'll be fine. Janitors' daughters always land on their feet, LOL. Emma smiled. For the first time in days, she smiled. Because Derek Mitchell had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And he had absolutely no idea. She put her phone away. Tomorrow, she would fly to New York. Tomorrow, she would meet Harold and the legal team. Tomorrow, she would begin building the empire her father had saved for her. But tonight, she went back to her father's apartment. She lay in his bed. She wrapped herself in his blankets. And she whispered to the dark, I understand now, Daddy. I understand everything. Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. But Emma Sullivan wasn't afraid anymore. She was just getting started. The private jet touched down at Teterboro Airport at 7:43 a.m. the next morning. Emma had never been on a private jet before, had never even seen one up close. But Robert Ashford had insisted, and now she understood why. The old Emma, the janitor's daughter, would have taken a commercial flight squeezed into a middle seat, apologizing for her pregnant belly. The new Emma, the Sullivan heir, needed to start thinking differently. Robert was waiting on the tarmac. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-40s, sharp suit, kind eyes that reminded her painfully of her father. Emma. He took both her hands in his. You look just like Uncle William. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. You knew him well. He was my hero. Robert's voice caught slightly. When I was 12, my father died. Uncle William had already left the family by then, but he came back for the funeral. Stayed for a week, taught me how to throw a baseball, told me that being a Sullivan meant something but not what the rest of the family thought it meant. What did he say it meant? Protecting people who can't protect themselves. Robert smiled. He said the money was just a tool. The real legacy was what you did with it. Emma felt tears threatening. That sounds like him. Come on. We have a lot to discuss, and I have a feeling you have questions. Questions? She had 1,000 of them. Robert led her to a waiting car, and as they drove into Manhattan, he began to explain. Your father left the family in 1983. Everyone thought he'd come crawling back within a year. He didn't. So my grandmother, your great-grandmother, cut him out of the will entirely. But she couldn't touch his trust fund, the one his grandfather had set up when he was born. That money was his no matter what. How much was in the trust? When he left, about 40 million. Robert glanced at her. Your father had a gift, Emma. He understood money. He spent 35 years quietly managing that trust, making investments, growing it. He never touched the principal. Never spent more than he earned as a janitor. Every penny of profit went back into the fund. 40 million to 5 billion in 35 years. He averaged about 15% annual returns, consistently, for 3.5 decades. Robert shook his head. The professional fund managers I work with would kill for those numbers. Your father did it from a 2-bedroom apartment while mopping floors during the day. Emma's heart ached. All those years. All those sacrifices. And he'd never said a word. Why didn't he tell me? Because he loved you. Robert's voice was gentle. He wanted you to grow up normal, to know your own worth without a dollar sign attached, to find someone who loved you for you. That worked out well. Actually, it did. Robert pulled out a folder. Because now we know exactly who Derek Mitchell really is. And more importantly, we know exactly what he's going to do next. Emma took the folder. Inside were photographs, documents, bank statements, Derek and Brittany at restaurants, Derek and Brittany at hotels, Derek and Brittany at a jewelry store picking out the ring Emma had seen on Instagram. You've been watching them. Your father hired a private investigator 6 months ago. The moment he got his diagnosis, he started preparing. He knew Emma. He knew Derek would leave you. He just wanted to make sure you had everything you needed when it happened. Emma flipped through the pages. Credit card statements showed purchases she'd never seen. Designer clothes for Brittany. Weekend trips to Miami. A watch that cost more than Emma's car. He's been spending our money on her. Not just spending, hiding. Robert pointed to a bank statement. 3 months ago, Derek opened a secret account. He's been siphoning money from your joint accounts a little at a time. He thought he was being clever. He thought no one would notice. How much? About $40,000 so far. Emma stared at the number. $40,000. Money that could have paid for her father's treatments. Money that could have made his last months more comfortable. Can I get it back? You could, but I'd recommend against it. Why? Because right now Derek thinks he's won. He thinks he escaped a poor janitor's daughter and traded up to a successful career woman. He has no idea what he walked away from. Robert smiled, and there was something sharp in it. Your father's instructions were very specific. Let Derek think he got away with everything. Let him marry Brittany. Let them build their little life together. And then when the time is right, we show them exactly what they threw away. When is the right time? That's up to you. Robert leaned forward. But I have a suggestion. In 3 weeks, the Sullivan Foundation is hosting its annual charity gala. 500 of the wealthiest, most influential people in New York will be there. It's the social event of the season. And the foundation needs a new director. Someone to take over the charitable work your father funded anonymously for decades. Someone young, passionate, with a personal story that will inspire donors. Robert met her eyes. Someone exactly like you. Emma's mind raced. You want me to announce who I am at the gala? I want you to step into your birthright. The Sullivan name carries weight in this city, in this country. Your father walked away from it, but he never stopped using it to help people. Homeless shelters, women's crisis centers, scholarships for kids from working-class families. He donated hundreds of millions over the years, all anonymously. I had no idea. That was the point. He didn't want credit. He wanted to make a difference. Robert's voice softened. But now he's gone, and someone needs to carry on his work. Someone needs to be the face of the Sullivan legacy. Why not you? Emma looked down at the photographs of Derek and Brittany, laughing, celebrating, thinking they'd won. What about them? Ah. Robert's smile widened. That's the beautiful part. The gala guest list is very exclusive. But I happen to know that Brittany Cole has been desperate to attend for years. Her company submitted a sponsorship application last month hoping to get a table. Did they get one? Not yet, but they will. I'll make sure of it. He paused. They'll walk into that gala thinking they've finally arrived, thinking they're rubbing shoulders with the elite, and then you'll take the stage. Emma's breath caught. They'll see me. They'll see Emma Sullivan, heir to the Sullivan fortune, director of a foundation worth $500 million, the woman Derek Mitchell divorced because he thought she wasn't good enough. The car pulled up to a sleek office building, Sullivan Tower. Robert turned to her. So, what do you say, Emma? Are you ready to become who you were always meant to be? Emma looked up at the building. 52 stories of glass and steel, built by her great-great-grandfather, abandoned by her father, waiting for her to claim it. Yes, she said. I'm ready. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Emma moved into a penthouse apartment that Robert had arranged. Not because she wanted luxury, but because she needed a base of operations. A place to plan. A place to prepare. She met with lawyers, accountants, financial advisors. She learned about trusts and holdings and portfolio management. She discovered that she owned pieces of companies she'd never heard of, buildings she'd never seen, investments that generated more interest in a day than she'd earned in a year. But mostly, she learned about her father. The private investigator had compiled a file on Derek, but Robert had compiled something else entirely. A history of William Sullivan's secret philanthropy. 35 years of anonymous gifts. Schools built, hospitals funded, lives saved. He never stopped being a Sullivan, Robert explained one afternoon. He just redefined what that meant. For my grandmother, being a Sullivan meant power, status, control. For Uncle William, it meant responsibility. Responsibility for what? For everyone who had less than he did. For everyone who struggled. For everyone who needed someone in their corner. Robert handed her a letter. He wrote this for you. Asked me to give it to you when you were ready. Emma opened it with trembling hands. My darling Emma. If you're reading this, you've made it to New York. You've met Robert. You're starting to understand the scope of what I've left you. I know it's overwhelming. I know it feels like too much, but I need you to understand something important. The money doesn't define you. It never did. It never will. You were my greatest treasure when I had nothing, and you're my greatest treasure now that you have everything. Use it wisely. Help people who need helping. Build something beautiful. And never ever let anyone make you feel small again. You are Emma Sullivan. You are my daughter. You are extraordinary, and the best part of your story is just beginning. All my love forever, Daddy. P.S. I hope you make Derek cry. He deserves it. Emma laughed through her tears. Even from beyond the grave, her father could make her smile. Meanwhile, across the city, Derek and Brittany were planning their wedding. They'd set the date for 6 weeks out. Quick, Brittany had insisted. No point waiting when you know what you want. Derek agreed because Derek always agreed with Brittany. She was the one with the connections, the ambition, the plan. He was just along for the ride. I got us tickets to the Sullivan Foundation Gala, Brittany announced one evening. Do you know how hard those are to get? We're finally moving up, Derek. Finally getting access to the people who matter. That's great, babe. Derek barely looked up from his phone. Hey, have you heard from Emma? She hasn't responded to any of my texts about the custody agreement. Why do you care? Brittany's voice sharpened. Let your lawyer handle it. You don't need to talk to her directly. I know. I just thought she'd be more upset. You know, when I told her I wanted a divorce, she just signed the papers. Didn't even cry. She's probably in shock. Or denial. Brittany waved her hand dismissively. Either way, it's not your problem anymore. She's a janitor's daughter, Derek. She'll marry some other loser, pop out a few more kids, and spend the rest of her life in that apartment wondering what went wrong. Derek nodded, but something nagged at him. Something about the way Emma had looked at him when he'd told her she wasn't enough. Not hurt, not angry, just calm, like she knew something he didn't. He shook it off. What could she possibly know? 2 weeks before the gala, Emma went shopping. Not at the mall where she'd bought her wedding dress on clearance. Not at the thrift stores where she'd found most of her wardrobe. At Bergdorf Goodman with a personal shopper named Victoria, who treated her like royalty. Miss Sullivan, we have several options for the gala. Your cousin mentioned you wanted something elegant but powerful. Something that makes a statement. I want them to remember me. Emma stared at her reflection in the mirror. 7 months pregnant now, her belly round and obvious. I want to walk into that room and make them forget every other woman there. Victoria smiled. I have just the thing. The dress was emerald green, silk, custom fitted to embrace her pregnant form rather than hide it. It cost more than Emma had made in a year at her old job. She bought it without blinking. I need jewelry too, she said. Something that belonged to the Sullivan family. Something with history. Robert had shown her the Sullivan collection. Pieces passed down through generations hidden in a vault since her father had left. Diamonds that had graced first ladies. Emeralds that had been wedding gifts from European royalty. She chose her great-grandmother's earrings. Simple, elegant, worth about $3 million. Derek had given Brittany a ring worth $12,000. Emma smiled at the thought. 1 week before the gala, Derek received a promotion. Senior Vice President of Marketing, a corner office, a 30% raise. Brittany pulled some strings, his boss explained. You're a lucky man, Derek. That woman has connections all over this city. Derek celebrated by buying champagne and taking Brittany to their favorite restaurant. To us, he toasted. To our new life. To everything we're going to build together. To the Sullivan Gala, Brittany added. I heard a rumor that they're announcing a new director for the foundation, some young socialite. This is exactly the kind of person we need to know. Who is it? Nobody knows yet. Very hush-hush. But I'm going to make sure I introduce myself. Get on her radar. Brittany's eyes gleamed. This is how you climb Derek. You find the people with power, and you make yourself useful to them. Derek nodded along, but his mind wandered to Emma. He'd sent her another text that morning about the custody schedule. She still hadn't responded. In fact, she hadn't responded to anything in 2 weeks. Not the texts, not the emails, not even the letter from his lawyer about final property division. It was like she'd vanished. Hey. Brittany snapped her fingers. Are you listening to me? Yeah, sorry. Just thinking about work stuff. Well, stop. We're celebrating. She raised her glass again. To the future, Mrs. Mitchell. To the future, Mrs. Mitchell, Derek echoed. But the champagne tasted strange in his mouth. Flat. Like something was missing. He pushed the feeling away. Probably nothing. The morning of the gala, Emma woke early. She stood at the window of her penthouse looking out over Manhattan, her hand resting on her belly. Your grandfather would have loved today, she whispered to her daughter. He planned it all, you know, every detail. He knew exactly what would happen. Her phone buzzed. Robert. Ready. Emma. Ready. Robert. Derek and Brittany confirmed. Table 47. Right in front of the stage. Emma smiled. Of course Robert had put them in front. Of course he'd made sure they had the best view. They were going to need it. She spent the day preparing. Hair, makeup, The emerald dress that fit like it had been made for her, because it had been made for her. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. Not the tired woman who'd sobbed over her father's hospital bed. Not the broken wife who'd signed divorce papers at her kitchen table. Not the poor janitor's daughter who wasn't good enough. She looked like a Sullivan. She looked like a billionaire. She looked like someone Derek Mitchell would never ever forget. At 6:47 p.m., her car pulled up to the Metropolitan Club. Paparazzi lined the entrance. Flashbulbs popped. Names were called. This was the event of the season, and everyone who was anyone wanted to be seen. Emma stepped out of the car. The photographers didn't know who she was. Not yet. But they knew expensive when they saw it. They knew power. They knew someone worth photographing. The flashes intensified. Emma walked up the steps like she'd done it 1,000 times before, like she belonged there, like she'd always belonged there. Inside the gala was already in full swing. 500 guests in their finest, champagne flowing, deals being made in whispered conversations, the annual ritual of the very rich pretending to care about the very poor. Robert appeared at her elbow. "They're already here. Table 47. Brittany's been working the room for an hour. Derek looks bored." "Good. Are you ready for this?" Emma looked across the room. And there they were. Derek in a rented tuxedo that didn't quite fit. Brittany in a red dress that probably cost a month's salary trying too hard to look like she belonged. Neither of them had seen her yet. "I've been ready my whole life," Emma said. "I just didn't know it." Robert nodded. "Then let's give them something to remember." He offered his arm. She took it, and together they walked toward the stage. Brittany noticed her first. "Derek." She grabbed his arm. "Look, that woman in green. Who is she?" Derek turned, and the champagne glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. He couldn't notice. He couldn't do anything except stare at the woman walking toward the stage. The pregnant woman in the emerald dress. The woman he'd divorced 3 weeks ago. "That's..." His voice cracked. "That's Emma." "What?" Brittany squinted. "That can't be Emma. Emma is a janitor's daughter. She can't afford to be here." "It's her." Derek's face had gone white. "What is she doing here? How did she get in?" Robert Ashford stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. The Sullivan Foundation has been dedicated to helping those in need for over 3 decades, and tonight we're thrilled to announce a new chapter in our mission." Derek grabbed Brittany's arm. "We need to leave." "What? No, I've been waiting years to get into this gala. I'm not leaving just because your ex-wife somehow snuck in." "You don't understand. As many of you know," Robert continued, "the Sullivan family has kept a relatively low profile in recent years. But tonight, I'm honored to introduce someone very special. She's the daughter of the late William Harrison Sullivan III. She's the new director of the Sullivan Foundation. And she's the heir to the Sullivan fortune." The room went silent. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Emma Sullivan." Emma walked onto the stage. The applause was thunderous. At table 47, Brittany's jaw dropped. "Sullivan?" she whispered. "Her name is Sullivan." Derek couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything except watch his ex-wife take the microphone like she owned the room. Because she did own the room. She owned half the city. And he had divorced her because he thought she wasn't good enough. "Thank you, Robert." Emma's voice was steady, strong. "And thank you all for coming tonight. I know many of you are wondering who I am and where I came from. So let me tell you a story." She looked directly at table 47. 3 months ago, I lost my father. To the world, he was just a janitor. A man who mopped floors at an elementary school for 35 years. A man who drove a car held together with duct tape. A man who ate ramen for dinner so his daughter could have ballet lessons. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But to me, he was everything. He taught me that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in kindness, in integrity, in how you treat people who can't do anything for you. Derek's hand was shaking. Brittany's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. What I didn't know until after his death was that my father was also William Harrison Sullivan III, heir to this very foundation. He walked away from billions because he fell in love with a woman his family didn't approve of. My mother. And he spent the rest of his life proving that love matters more than money. Emma's eyes found Derek's across the crowded room. 3 weeks ago, my husband divorced me. He told me I would never be enough for the life he wanted to build. He said I was holding him back. He left me while I was 6 months pregnant one day after my father's funeral to marry another woman. Gasps echoed through the gala. He thought he was trading up. He thought he was escaping poverty for something better. She smiled. He was wrong. Derek's legs gave out. He sat down hard, missing his chair entirely, ending up on the floor in a puddle of spilled champagne. My father left me everything. $5.2 billion, properties across the country, shares in companies you've all heard of, and this foundation which I intend to use to help women just like me. Women who've been told they're not enough. Women who've been abandoned by people who should have loved them. Women who've been underestimated their entire lives. The applause started again, louder this time. People were standing. At table 47, Brittany was having a very different reaction. "Oh my God." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Oh my God, oh my God." "Brittany, you divorced a billionaire." Her whisper became a shriek. "You left a billionaire to marry me." The people at the surrounding tables turned to stare. "Keep your voice down." $5 billion. Derek, you walked away from $5 billion because you thought I was a better option. I didn't know. You didn't know. Brittany was on her feet now, her face contorted with rage. You told me she was poor. You told me her father was a janitor. You told me you were trading up. He was a janitor, who was secretly a billionaire. Brittany grabbed her champagne and threw it in his face. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you have any idea what this means? Derek wiped champagne from his eyes. Brittany, please, people are watching. Let them watch. She ripped the engagement ring from her finger and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and disappeared under a table. I'm not marrying you. I'm not tying myself to the man who was too stupid to realize he married into billions. She grabbed her clutch and stormed toward the exit. Every eye in the room followed her. Every eye except Emma's. She was looking at Derek, sitting on the floor, covered in champagne, alone. The Sullivan Foundation, she continued as if nothing had happened, will be launching a new initiative next month. The Phoenix Program, named after the bird that rises from its own ashes. Because that's what we do. That's what women do. We rise. More applause. Derek finally managed to get to his feet. His rented tuxedo was ruined. His face was red. His eyes were wet with tears he was desperately trying to hide. Emma smiled at him. Then she turned back to the crowd. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. And thank you for believing as I do that the best revenge isn't destruction. The best revenge is rising so high that the people who doubted you spend the rest of their lives looking up. The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. Derek stumbled toward the exit. Halfway there, a waiter stepped in front of him. Sir, the bill for your table, $6,000. I'm not paying that. Sir, the payment was declined. The credit card on file doesn't appear to be valid. Derek's stomach dropped. Brittany's card. The card she'd used to book the table. I don't have $6,000. Then I'll need to speak with security, sir. Emma watched from the stage as her ex-husband was escorted to a back room to sort out his finances. She watched him make phone calls that went unanswered. Watched him empty his pockets to find barely $300. Robert appeared beside her. Brittany canceled her cards, all of them. Derek's name is still on their joint account, but she's already filed paperwork to freeze it. How do you know that? Because I suggested it to her 3 minutes ago. Robert's smile was sharp. I told her that distancing herself from Derek publicly and quickly was the only way to save her reputation. She agreed enthusiastically. And Derek will probably have to call a taxi. His car was in Brittany's name. Emma should have felt satisfied, triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she felt tired. It's not about him anymore, is it? Robert said quietly. You've already moved past him. He was always smaller than I thought. I just couldn't see it when I was small too. She touched her belly. Now I have bigger things to think about. Speaking of which, Robert nodded toward a group of women approaching. You've got admirers, potential donors. The real work starts now. Emma straightened her shoulders. Derek Mitchell was her past. The Sullivan Foundation was her future, and she was just getting started. At 11:47 p.m., Emma's car pulled up to her penthouse. She was exhausted, exhilarated, overwhelmed. Her phone had been buzzing all night. Interview requests, donor inquiries, messages from people she hadn't heard from in years, suddenly remembering they'd always been friends. And 7 texts from Derek. Emma, please call me. I had no idea. I swear I had no idea. Can we talk? Please, I made a mistake. I know I don't deserve it, but please just give me a chance to explain. I still have feelings for you. I always did. The baby. Our baby. I want to be there. I want to be a family. Emma, please. Please respond. She read each one. Then she blocked his number. She had protected herself from him once when she'd signed those divorce papers without fighting. Now she was protecting herself again. Some doors once closed should never be opened. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Emma Sullivan. Silence on the line. Then a woman's voice, hard and cold. You think you've won, don't you? Emma recognized the voice instantly. Brittany. I think, Emma said calmly, that I've finally become who I was meant to be. You humiliated me, in front of everyone who matters in this city. My career is ruined. My reputation is destroyed. And for what? Because your idiot ex-husband didn't know your daddy was secretly rich. I didn't humiliate you, Brittany. You did that yourself. Every choice you made led to that moment. Every lie, every manipulation, every time you looked at Derek's pregnant wife and saw nothing worth protecting. I'm going to destroy you. No. Emma's voice was soft, certain. You're not, because I'm not the woman you thought I was. I was never the woman you thought I was, and now the whole world knows it. She hung up. Then she walked to the window looking out over the city her great-great-grandfather had helped build. Somewhere out there, Derek was trying to figure out how to get home. Somewhere out there, Brittany was plotting revenge she would never achieve. And somewhere up above, Emma's father was watching. I did it, Daddy, she whispered, just like you planned. Her baby kicked strong and certain. Emma smiled. The storm had passed, and she was still standing. 2 days after the gala, Derek Mitchell lost his job. The call came at 8:14 a.m. on a Monday morning. His boss, the same man who had promoted him just weeks earlier, delivered the news with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. It's nothing personal, Derek, but Brittany has made it very clear that she can't work in the same building as you. And frankly, between the two of you, she's the one with the client relationships. You're firing me because of her. I'm letting you go because the company can't afford the liability. The story from the gala is everywhere. You're toxic right now. I'm sorry, but my hands are tied. Derek sat in his apartment surrounded by boxes of belongings Brittany had thrown out of her condo and tried to understand how his life had collapsed so completely in 48 hours. He'd had everything. A beautiful fiancée, a corner office, a plan for the future. Now he had nothing. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Mitchell, this is the law office of Sullivan and Associates. We've been retained to represent Emma Sullivan in the matter of child custody. Please be advised that Ms. Sullivan is seeking full custody of the minor child with supervised visitation rights only. A formal hearing has been scheduled for 3 weeks from today. You will receive official documentation shortly. Derek's hands shook as he read the message twice, 3 times, trying to make the words say something different. Full custody. Supervised visitation. She was taking his daughter. He called the number back immediately. A receptionist answered with professional coolness. Sullivan and Associates. How may I direct your call? I need to speak to someone about the custody case. Emma Sullivan. I'm Derek Mitchell, the father. One moment, please. Hold music, classical. The kind of music rich people listen to. Then a man's voice. Familiar. Robert Ashford. Mr. Mitchell, I was wondering when you'd call. You can't do this. You can't take my daughter away from me. We're not taking anything, Mr. Mitchell. We're simply ensuring that Ms. Sullivan and her child have the protection they deserve. Robert's voice was pleasant, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. Given your history of financial deception, emotional abandonment, and infidelity during your marriage, the court will likely agree that supervised visitation is appropriate. I made mistakes. I know that. But I'm still her father. Biologically, yes. But fatherhood is more than DNA, Mr. Mitchell. It's showing up. It's being present. It's not abandoning your pregnant wife to marry your mistress. Robert paused. Your words at the divorce proceedings were very illuminating, by the way. The baby is just biology. Do you remember saying that? Derek's stomach dropped. That was taken out of context. The context was quite clear. You didn't want the responsibility of a child. You wanted freedom. Well, Mr. Mitchell, you have it now. Please, just let me talk to Emma. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Ms. Sullivan has no interest in speaking with you. She's made that very clear. Then tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'll do anything. Tell her I made the worst mistake of my life and I know it. I'll pass along the message. Robert's voice hardened slightly. But Mr. Mitchell, let me be very clear about something. Emma Sullivan is not the woman you divorced. She's not the desperate grieving widow you thought you could discard. She has resources you cannot imagine and support you cannot match. If you try to fight this custody arrangement, you will lose, badly, and publicly. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. Have a pleasant day, Mr. Mitchell. The line went dead. Derek threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered into pieces just like everything else in his life. 3 blocks away in her penthouse apartment, Emma was having a very different morning. She sat across from Dr. Patricia Mensah, her new obstetrician, reviewing the latest ultrasound results. Everything looks perfect, Ms. Sullivan. Your daughter is healthy, strong, and exactly where she should be for 32 weeks. You're doing wonderfully. I don't feel like I'm doing wonderfully. Emma touched her belly. I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's completely normal. You've been through extraordinary stress in the past month. Losing your father, ending your marriage, taking over a foundation. Most women would crumble under half that pressure. Dr. Mensah smiled warmly. But your blood pressure is stable, your weight is good, and your baby is thriving. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. After the appointment, Emma met Robert for lunch at a restaurant she'd never heard of before, inheriting $5 billion. The kind of place where the menu didn't have prices, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The custody petition has been filed, Robert reported. Derek received notification this morning. How did he react? About as well as you'd expect. He called the office, demanded to speak with you, made vague noises about fighting for his rights. Robert shrugged. I informed him of the realities of his situation. Will he fight? He can't afford to. He lost his job this morning. Brittany made sure of that. Emma felt a flicker of something that might have been pity. She's really going scorched earth on him. She's protecting her reputation. In her world, being the woman who stole another woman's husband is embarrassing, but recoverable. Being the woman who stole a billionaire's husband and got dumped for it. That's career suicide. Robert sipped his coffee. She's spinning the narrative, claiming Derek lied to her, that she had no idea you were wealthy, that she's as much a victim as you are. Will anyone believe that? Some will. Enough to let her rebuild. Give it a year, she'll be back on her feet with a new job and a new target. Robert's eyes met Emma's. Unless you want to make sure that doesn't happen. Emma considered the offer. She had the power now. The money. The connections. She could destroy Brittany just as thoroughly as Brittany had tried to destroy her. No. She shook her head. I'm not interested in revenge anymore. I made my point at the gala. She knows what she lost. Derek knows what he lost. That's enough. Your father would be proud of you for that. My father planned all of this. The timing, the reveal, even the table placement at the gala. Emma smiled sadly. He wanted Derek to suffer, but he also wanted me to know when to stop. Revenge is a trap. He warned me about that. He warned you about a lot of things. He warned me about Derek. Emma's voice tightened. 3 weeks before he died, he sat me down and told me exactly who my husband really was. I didn't believe him. I thought he was confused, dying, scared. She closed her eyes. He was right about everything. Uncle William was always right about people. It was his gift. It was his curse. Emma opened her eyes. He saw the worst in people before they showed it. It must have been exhausting knowing how everyone around him would eventually disappoint him. Not everyone. Robert reached across the table and squeezed her hand. He never stopped believing in you, not for 1 second. Emma's phone buzzed, a text from her security team. Ma'am, there's a woman at the building entrance claiming to be your mother-in-law. She's demanding to speak with you. How would you like us to proceed? Emma stared at the message. Her mother-in-law, Derek's mother, Sandra Mitchell, the woman who had called Emma not quite what we expected at their first meeting. The woman who had complained about the cheap wine at their wedding. The woman who had told Derek within Emma's hearing that he could have done so much better. What is it? Robert asked. Derek's mother is downstairs. Do you want me to have her removed? Emma thought about it. Sandra Mitchell had never liked her, had never made the slightest effort to welcome her into the family, had probably celebrated when Derek told her about the divorce. But she was also going to be Emma's daughter's grandmother. No. Send her up. I'll hear what she has to say. 10 minutes later, Sandra Mitchell walked into Emma's penthouse like she owned it. She was 63, perfectly coiffed, wearing designer clothes that Emma now recognized as last season's knockoffs. Everything about her screamed money she didn't actually have. Well, Sandra looked around the penthouse with barely concealed envy. This is quite an upgrade from that apartment you shared with my son. Hello, Sandra. Would you like to sit down? I'd like an explanation. Sandra's voice was sharp. What are you trying to do to my son? I'm not trying to do anything to your son. I'm protecting myself and my daughter from a man who abandoned us. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. That doesn't mean you have to destroy his entire life. I didn't destroy his life, Sandra. He did that himself. Sandra's eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Finally having power over him. Finally getting to play the victim while making him suffer. I'm not playing anything. I am the victim. Your son cheated on me for months while my father was dying. He asked me for a divorce one day after the funeral. He married his mistress 24 hours after I buried the only family I had left. Emma kept her voice steady. Those are facts. I didn't create them. Derek did. Brittany seduced him. She took advantage of a man going through a difficult time. A difficult time? Emma laughed. What difficult time? I was the one watching my father die. I was the one 6 months pregnant and alone. Derek was at restaurants with his mistress and hotel rooms with his girlfriend and jewelry stores picking out rings for the woman he actually wanted. Sandra's face flushed. You don't understand men. They have needs. When those needs aren't being met at home, they look elsewhere. Maybe if you'd been a better wife. Get out. Excuse me. Get out of my home. Emma stood, her belly prominent, her voice cold. I invited you here because I thought maybe, just maybe, you wanted to have a relationship with your granddaughter. But all you want is to blame me for your son's failures. My son is not a failure. Your son is exactly what you raised him to be: selfish, entitled, convinced that the rules don't apply to him. Emma walked to the door and opened it. And if you ever want to meet your granddaughter, you'll need to learn to treat her mother with basic human respect. Until then, we have nothing to say to each other. Sandra's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You think you're better than us now, she finally managed, just because you have money. But you're still that same pathetic girl who couldn't keep her husband interested. No. Emma smiled. I'm the woman who survived your son and came out stronger, and that terrifies you. Sandra stormed out without another word. Emma closed the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding. Her phone rang. Robert. I heard that from the lobby. Security has the whole thing on camera. Do you want me to file a restraining order? No, she's not dangerous, just desperate. She's protecting her son. She's protecting herself. If Derek fails, it reflects on her. That's all she really cares about. Emma walked to the window. But thank you for the offer. Emma, there's something else. Something I need to tell you. The tone of his voice made her stomach clench. What is it? Our investigators have been going through Derek's financial records more thoroughly, looking for anything we might have missed that could be relevant to the custody case. And, Robert hesitated. They found something. Something I think you need to see in person. Can you tell me what it is? I'd rather show you. Can you come to the office this afternoon? Emma looked at her calendar, blocked out for the rest of the day. She'd planned to rest, to take care of herself, to prepare for the baby, but the tone in Robert's voice said this couldn't wait. I'll be there in an hour. The documents were spread across Robert's conference table when she arrived. Bank statements, credit card receipts, email printouts. We knew Derek had been siphoning money from your joint accounts, Robert began. About $40,000 over the past 6 months. We assumed it was for Brittany, for their affair. It wasn't. Some of it was. But look at this. He slid a bank statement toward her. Starting about 8 months ago, Derek began making regular payments to a company called Sunset Care Partners, $5,000 a month. Emma frowned. I don't recognize that name. It's an assisted living facility in Wisconsin. Assisted living for who? Robert handed her another document, a registration form, a photograph attached. Emma's blood ran cold. The photograph showed an elderly man, thin, frail, eyes vacant with dementia. William Sullivan, her father. I don't understand. My father was never in assisted living. He lived in his apartment until the cancer took him to the hospital. This isn't a real registration. Robert's voice was tight with controlled anger. It's a fraud. Derek created a fake company, listed your father as a patient, and began billing your joint accounts for his care. But my father wasn't there. No, but you thought he might need to be. Derek used your fear about your father's declining health to create a paper trail that looked legitimate. Every time you asked about the household finances, he pointed to these payments as proof that the money was going toward family care. Emma's head was spinning. He stole from us by pretending to pay for my father's care. It gets worse. Robert handed her a stack of emails. These were sent from Derek's personal account to an address we traced back to Brittany's assistant. They're discussing ways to accelerate your father's decline. Emma couldn't breathe. Accelerate his decline. They talked about reducing his medication, making sure he missed doctor's appointments, convincing you that he didn't need certain treatments. Robert's face was stone. They wanted him to die faster, Emma, so they could be together sooner. The room tilted. Emma grabbed the edge of the table. They killed my father. We can't prove that. The cancer was real and it was aggressive. But these emails show clear intent to interfere with his medical care. Robert's voice was gentle now. At minimum, they shortened what time he had left. At worst, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Emma's vision blurred with tears. All those months, all those nights at the hospital, all those times Derek had claimed he couldn't come, couldn't help, couldn't be there. He hadn't been avoiding her grief. He'd been speeding it along. I want to destroy them. The words came out harsh and broken. Both of them. I want them to suffer like my father suffered. I understand. And we can pursue criminal charges if you want. The emails alone might be enough for conspiracy charges. Do it. Emma. Robert moved around the table to stand beside her. I need you to be sure. Criminal proceedings are public. Every detail of your marriage, your father's illness, Derek's betrayal, it'll all be in the news. You'll have to testify. Relive all of it. And there's no guarantee of conviction. I don't care. You should care. Because right now you're winning. Derek has lost everything. His job, his fiancée, his reputation, his access to his daughter. Pursuing criminal charges might feel satisfying, but it keeps him in your life. Keeps him relevant. Is that what you want? Emma closed her eyes. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. The best revenge isn't destruction. The best revenge is becoming so magnificent that your enemies destroy themselves. What would my father do? He'd ask you what you really want, not what anger wants, not what pain wants, what you want. Emma thought about it, really thought. What did she want? She wanted her father back. She couldn't have that. She wanted her baby to be born healthy. That was happening. She wanted to build something meaningful. The foundation was waiting. She wanted Derek to suffer. But did she want to be the one causing it? Give the emails to the district attorney's office, she finally said. Let them decide whether to pursue charges. I won't push for it, but I won't hide it either. If there's a case, they'll bring it. If there isn't, then karma will have to do the rest. Robert nodded slowly. Your father would approve. My father would have done the same thing. Emma wiped her eyes. He always said that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. He was quoting Buddha. He was quoting a fortune cookie he got at the Chinese place on 4th Street. Emma almost smiled. But he was right. She gathered the documents, evidence of betrayal, proof of cruelty, a record of everything Derek had done. Keep copies of everything. I want it available if I ever need it. Of course. And Robert. She turned at the door. Thank you. For being honest with me. For not trying to protect me from the truth. You're a Sullivan, Emma. We don't hide from hard truths. We face them. She nodded and walked out into the afternoon sun. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. Emma, please. I know you blocked me. I borrowed a friend's phone. I need to talk to you. It's important. It's about your father. Derek. She should delete it. Should ignore it. Should let the lawyers handle everything. But something about those words about your father made her pause. What could Derek possibly have to say about her father? She typed back. You have 60 seconds when I answer this call. Use them wisely. She called immediately. Derek answered on the first ring. Emma. Thank God. Listen, I know you hate me. I deserve it. But there's something you need to know. 50 seconds. It's about Brittany. She's not done with you. She's planning something. I don't know what exactly, but I overheard her on the phone yesterday. She's talking to someone about getting evidence, something that could hurt you. You're warning me about Brittany. I know how it sounds. I know you have no reason to trust me. But Emma, she's dangerous. More dangerous than you think. Derek's voice cracked. I thought I knew her. I thought she loved me. But she was using me the whole time. Using me to get to you. Get to me how? I don't know, But whatever she's planning, it involves your father. Something about his past. Something he was hiding. Emma's blood ran cold. What do you mean something he was hiding? I don't know the details. She just kept saying that everyone has secrets, even janitor billionaires, and that yours were going to come out. 30 seconds. Emma, please. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But our daughter deserves a mother who's prepared for what's coming. Whatever Brittany has planned, you need to be ready. Why are you telling me this? Silence on the line. Then quietly. Because I finally realized what I threw away. And because even after everything I did, I don't want her to win. Time's up. Emma, wait. She hung up. Her hands were shaking. Something about her father. Something he was hiding. Secrets that were going to come out. What could Brittany possibly have found? Emma's father had been thorough. Careful. He'd spent 35 years building a secret life that no one had discovered. But everyone made mistakes. Everyone left traces. She called Robert. We have a problem. I need you to find out everything Brittany Cole has been doing for the past week. Everyone she's talked to. Everywhere she's been. What's going on? I'm not sure yet, but I think she's about to make a move. Emma hung up and stared out the window at the city below. Her father had protected her from so much, had planned for so many contingencies, but even he couldn't plan for everything. And somewhere out there, a woman with nothing left to lose was digging for weapons. Emma placed her hand on her belly. Don't worry, little one, she whispered. Whatever's coming, we'll face it together. Her phone buzzed again. Robert. Emma, I found something. You need to come back to the office. Now. What is it? It's about your mother. Your real mother. Robert's voice was strange, shaken. Emma, there's something your father never told you. Something big. The phone slipped in Emma's suddenly sweaty palm. Her mother. The woman who had died giving her life. The woman her father had loved enough to sacrifice everything for. What secret could she possibly have? I'm on my way, Emma said. And for the first time since the gala, she felt afraid. Emma arrived at Robert's office at 4:47 p.m., her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Robert was waiting at the door. His face told her everything she needed to know before he said a word. Sit down, Emma. Just tell me. Please, sit down. She sat. Her hands gripped the armrests like they were the only thing keeping her from flying apart. Robert placed a folder on the table between them. Old, worn, the kind that had been opened and closed hundreds of times over decades. When your father left the Sullivan family, he didn't just change his name. He erased his entire past. New identity, new social security number, everything. Robert's voice was careful, measured. But he couldn't erase your mother's past, because she had secrets of her own. What kind of secrets? Robert opened the folder. The first page was a birth certificate. Sarah Michelle Turner, born March 15, 1962 in Detroit, Michigan. Your mother wasn't just a teacher, Emma. Before she met your father, she had a different life, a life she never told him about. I don't understand. Sarah Turner was born into poverty, foster homes, group homes. The system failed her at every turn. Robert turned to the next page. A police report. When she was 17, she was arrested for theft. She'd been stealing to survive. The charges were eventually dropped, but the record existed. My mother was a criminal. She was a desperate teenager who made mistakes. She got out, got herself through college, became a teacher, built a new life. Robert's eyes met Emma's. But Brittany found the records. She's planning to release them to the press. Tomorrow morning. Emma felt the room spin. Why does that matter? My mother is dead. She's been dead for 35 years. Because Brittany isn't just releasing the arrest record. Robert turned to the next page. She found something else. Something that changes everything. Emma looked down at the document. A marriage certificate. Sarah Michelle Turner to James David Montgomery. Dated June 3, 1981. 2 years before Emma was born. My mother was married before my father. She was married when she met your father. Robert's voice was barely above a whisper. The divorce wasn't finalized until 1984. Emma, you were born in 1983. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. You're saying my parents weren't legally married when I was born. I'm saying your mother was still technically married to another man when she met your father when they fell in love when they had you. Robert closed the folder. And Brittany is planning to use this to challenge your inheritance. She's claiming that because your parents' marriage was invalid, you're not a legitimate Sullivan heir. Emma laughed. The sound was harsh broken. That's insane. My father left me everything in his will. It doesn't matter if my parents were legally married. It does if Brittany can prove that your father didn't know about your mother's first marriage. If she can argue that he was deceived, that he wouldn't have left you the inheritance if he'd known the truth. Robert's face was grim. She's not trying to win in court, Emma. She's trying to create enough scandal and doubt that it destroys you publicly, destroys the foundation, destroys everything your father built. Did he know? Emma's voice cracked. Did my father know about any of this? Robert reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age, her father's handwriting on the front. For Emma, if she ever needs to know the truth, Satsier. He left this with me 15 years ago, told me to give it to you only if the past ever caught up with her. Robert handed her the envelope. I think now is that time. Emma's hands trembled as she opened it. Her father's voice filled her head as she read. My darling Emma, if you're reading this, then someone has discovered what I've known since the day I met your mother. She was married when we fell in love. She was running from a man who hurt her, a man who would have destroyed her if he'd found her. She couldn't divorce him legally because he would have tracked her down. I knew. From the very first week I knew, and I didn't care. Your mother was the bravest woman I ever met. She survived things that would have broken anyone else. She rebuilt herself from nothing. She became a teacher so she could help children who were as lost as she once was. When I met her, I saw someone who deserved to be protected, loved, given a chance at the life she'd been denied. So I married her anyway. Quietly. Privately. With witnesses who understood. Was it legal? No. Was it real? More real than anything else in my life. And you, Emma, you were the product of that love. The most real thing either of us ever created. I changed my identity to protect your mother. I walked away from billions to keep her safe. And I would do it again 1,000 times over. Whatever anyone tries to tell you about your mother, remember this. She was not a criminal. She was not a liar. She was not a fraud. She was a survivor. And so are you. Don't let them rewrite her story. Don't let them diminish what we had. Don't let them make you ashamed of where you came from. Because where you came from is a love story. A messy, complicated, legally questionable love story. But a love story nonetheless. I protected her secrets while she was alive. Now I'm asking you to protect them for her. But if you can't, if the world must know, then hold your head high and tell them the truth. Your mother was a hero. Your father was a fool in love. And you are the best thing either of them ever did. All my love, Daddy. Emma read the letter 3 times. Each time the words hit harder. Her mother, a survivor. Her father, a protector. Their love, built on secrets and sacrifice. What do I do? She finally asked. You have options. Robert leaned forward. We can try to suppress Brittany's story. File an injunction. Claim invasion of privacy. It might buy us time. Or you get ahead of it. Tell your story before she tells hers. Control the narrative. Go public with my mother's past. Go public with the truth. All of it. The poverty. The first marriage. The escape. The love story. Robert's voice was firm. Brittany wants to shame you with your mother's history. But shame only works if you accept it. If you own the story, if you tell it yourself, she has nothing. Emma looked down at her father's letter. He protected her secrets for 35 years. He did. And now I'm supposed to expose them. You're supposed to decide what's more important, your mother's privacy or your father's legacy. Robert's eyes were kind but unflinching. The foundation helps thousands of women every year. Women who are survivors just like your mother was. If Brittany succeeds, if she destroys the foundation's credibility, all of those women lose too. Emma closed her eyes. Her mother had been 17, desperate, alone, just like the women the foundation was trying to help. When is Brittany releasing the story? Tomorrow at 9 a.m. She's given an exclusive to the Post. They're running it as the front page. Emma checked her phone. 5:23 p.m. Less than 16 hours. Can you arrange a press conference? When? Tonight. 8 o'clock, before the news cycle starts. Robert's eyebrows rose. That's less than 3 hours. Then we'd better get moving. She stood up, her father's letter clutched in her hand. Emma. Robert's voice stopped her at the door. Are you sure about this? Once you tell this story, there's no taking it back. I know. She turned to face him. But my mother spent her whole life running from her past. She died still running. I'm not going to run. Not from Brittany. Not from the truth. Not from anything. Robert nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. My father would be terrified. Emma almost smiled. But he'd do it anyway. That's what Sullivans do, right? We face hard truths. We face them, and we survive them. Then let's survive this. The press conference was held in the Sullivan Foundation's main conference room at 8:07 p.m. 47 journalists, 15 cameras. A story about to break that would change everything. Emma walked to the podium in the same emerald dress she'd worn to the gala. A statement. A reminder. I am still standing. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. I know you're wondering why I called this press conference. The answer is simple. Tomorrow morning, a story is going to be published about my mother. A story designed to shame me, discredit my family, and destroy everything my father built. Murmurs rippled through the room. I'm not going to let that happen. So instead of letting someone else tell my mother's story, I'm going to tell it myself. She took a breath. My mother was born Sarah Michelle Turner in Detroit, Michigan in 1962. She grew up in foster homes. She was abused, neglected, failed by every system that was supposed to protect her. When she was 17, she was arrested for stealing food, because she was hungry, because no one else was feeding her. The room was silent. When she was 19, she married a man who promised to take care of her. Instead, he hurt her, controlled her, made her life a prison. She couldn't leave because she had nowhere to go. She couldn't divorce him because he would have found her. Emma's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed on. So she ran. She changed her name. She put herself through college. She became a teacher. She rebuilt her entire life from scratch. And then she met my father. Emma held up the letter. This is from my father. He wrote it 15 years ago, in case this day ever came. In it, he explains that he knew about my mother's past from the very beginning. He knew she was still technically married. He knew her history. And he loved her anyway. She looked directly into the cameras. Was their marriage legal? No. But was it real? More real than anything else in either of their lives. My father walked away from billions of dollars to protect a woman who had nothing but her courage and her hope for a better life. He spent 35 years keeping her secrets safe. My mother died giving birth to me. She never got to see me grow up. Never got to know that her daughter would become someone worth knowing. But I know who she was. She was a survivor, a fighter, A woman who refused to let her circumstances define her. Emma's voice rose. The person releasing this story tomorrow thinks my mother's past is something to be ashamed of. They think that by revealing where she came from, they can destroy who I am. They're wrong. My mother's story isn't a scandal. It's an inspiration. It's the story of millions of women who've been abused, abandoned, failed by the people who should have protected them. Women who had to steal to eat. Women who married the wrong person because they had no other options. Women who ran for their lives and built something new from the ashes. That's who the Sullivan Foundation serves. Women like my mother. Women who deserve a second chance. She set down the letter. So here's what I want everyone to know. I am not ashamed of where I come from. I am proud of my mother. I am proud of my father. And I am proud of the love they shared, even if it didn't fit into a neat legal box. My name is Emma Sullivan. My mother was a survivor. My father was a man who gave up everything for love, and I am their daughter. Any questions? The room erupted. Hands shot up everywhere. Voices called out. Cameras flashed. Emma answered every question. About her mother's first husband who had died in prison 2 years after she'd left him. About her father's decision to keep the secret. About the inheritance which was secure because William Sullivan had legally adopted her when she was 3 years old. He knew, Emma explained. He knew that someday someone might challenge my legitimacy. So he made sure legally and formally that I was his daughter in every way that mattered. At 9:47 p.m., the press conference ended. Emma walked off the stage and into Robert's arms. You did it. His voice was thick with emotion. You were magnificent. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. You just exposed your entire family history on national television. Is it working? Did we get ahead of the story? Robert checked his phone. The Post is scrambling. Their exclusive is worthless now. Every network is leading with your press conference. He showed her the headlines already forming. Emma Sullivan reveals family secrets in emotional press conference. I am not ashamed. Billionaire heiress defends mother's past. And Brittany. Radio silence. She's probably trying to figure out her next move. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won. You haven't. This isn't over. Brittany. Emma typed back. You're right. It isn't over. But you've already lost. You just don't know it yet. She blocked the number and handed her phone to Robert. I need to rest. The baby's been kicking like crazy all night. I'll have a car take you home. Robert. She turned back at the door. Thank you. For everything. For protecting my father's secrets. For being here when I needed you. You're family, Emma. That's what family does. The drive home was quiet. Emma sat in the back seat, her hand on her belly, watching the city lights blur past. Her phone buzzed again. A different number. Emma, I saw the press conference. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. You didn't deserve any of what I did to you. Derek. She should ignore it, should delete it, should move on. But something made her respond. Why are you texting me? His reply came immediately. Because I finally understand what I threw away. Not the money. You. The person you are. The strength you have. I watched you tonight and I saw someone I never really knew. Someone extraordinary. You had 7 years to see that, Derek. I know. I was blind. I was stupid. I was everything you probably think I am. What do you want? I want you to know that I'm not going to fight the custody arrangement. You're right. You should have full custody. I don't deserve to be her father. Not after what I did. Emma stared at the message. You're giving up. I'm accepting reality. I'm not the man I should have been. Maybe someday I can become him. But right now, you and the baby deserve better than me. Emma didn't know what to say. This was so different from the Derek she knew. The Derek who always fought, always schemed, always looked for the angle. What changed? I watched you stand in front of those cameras and own your story. Own your mother's story. Own every hard truth about your family. And I realized I've never owned anything in my life. I've just taken. From you. From Brittany. From everyone. A long pause. I don't want to be that person anymore. Emma closed her eyes. I don't forgive you, Derek. I'm not sure I ever will. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance to do one thing right. Let me walk away clean. Let me stop hurting you. That's all. She thought about it for a long moment. The custody hearing is in 2 weeks. If you really mean what you're saying, tell your lawyer to accept the terms. No modifications. No conditions. Done. And Derek. Yeah. Stay away from Brittany. Whatever she's planning next, don't let her use you again. She's not planning anything. She's done. What do you mean? I mean, I just sent everything I know about her to the district attorney. The emails about your father. The financial fraud. Everything. Derek's text was followed by another. It's the least I could do. Emma sat very still. Why would you do that? Because I finally realized something. Your father was right about me. I was never good enough for you. But maybe, just maybe, I can be good enough to do one decent thing before I disappear. Disappear where? I don't know yet. Somewhere I can start over. Somewhere nobody knows who I am or what I did. He paused. Take care of yourself, Emma. Take care of our daughter. Give her a better father than I would have been. Derek. Goodbye, Emma. The messages stopped. Emma stared at her phone for a long time. Whatever she had expected from Derek Mitchell, it wasn't this. Not surrender. Not confession. Not genuine remorse. People didn't change. That's what she'd always believed. But maybe sometimes they did. The car pulled up to her building. Emma thanked the driver and made her way up to her penthouse. The apartment was dark, quiet, safe. She walked to the window and looked out at the city. Her city now. The city her great-great-grandfather had helped build. Her phone buzzed one more time. Robert. Brittany Cole was just arrested. The DA moved fast. She's being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, tampering with medical care, and about 6 other things I can't pronounce. It's over, Emma. It's really over. Emma read the message twice. Over. Was it really over? Her father was still dead. Her mother's secrets were still exposed. Her daughter was still coming into a world full of people who would try to use her, hurt her, take advantage of her. Nothing was ever really over, but this chapter was. She placed her hand on her belly. We did it, little one. We survived. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Sullivan. This is Dr. Mensah. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need you to come to the hospital. Your latest test results show some irregularities. It's probably nothing, but I want to examine you tonight. Emma's blood went cold. What kind of irregularities? Your blood pressure is elevated, much higher than your last reading. It could be stress-related given everything you've been through. But with your family history and your current stage of pregnancy, I don't want to take any chances. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Emma grabbed her purse and headed for the door. She'd survived Brittany, survived Derek, survived the exposure of her family's secrets. But nothing had prepared her for this. The one battle that money couldn't win. The one enemy that power couldn't defeat. Her own body turning against her. She stepped into the elevator, her hand pressed against her belly. Hold on, sweetheart, she whispered. Hold on just a little longer. The doors closed. And Emma Sullivan faced the one truth she couldn't control. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before Emma at 11:23 p.m. Dr. Mensah met her at the entrance to the maternity ward. Her face professionally calm, but her eyes betraying concern. Your blood pressure is 160/105. That's dangerously high for someone at 34 weeks. What does that mean? It means we need to monitor you closely. It could be preeclampsia. If it gets worse, we may need to deliver early. Emma's hand flew to her belly. It's too soon. She's not ready. Babies born at 34 weeks usually do very well. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Dr. Mensah guided her toward a private room. First we run tests, then we make decisions. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of blood draws monitors and waiting. Robert arrived at 12:47 a.m. still in his suit from the press conference. I came as soon as I heard. What's happening? They're running tests. My blood pressure is too high. Emma's voice was hollow. After everything I've survived, this might be what breaks me. Nothing is going to break you. Robert took her hand. Your father survived cancer for 3 months longer than any doctor predicted just so he could make sure you were protected. That kind of stubbornness is genetic. Emma almost smiled. He would hate being stuck in a hospital room. He would hate not being here for this even more. At 2:15 a.m., Dr. Mensah returned with results. It's preeclampsia, early stage but progressing. We have 2 options. She sat down, her expression serious. Option 1, we admit you, put you on bed rest and medication, and try to keep the baby inside as long as possible. This gives her more time to develop, but it puts you at increasing risk. And option 2, we deliver now. The baby is small but viable. She'll need some time in the NICU, but the risk to you would be eliminated. Emma closed her eyes. Every choice felt impossible. What would you do if this was your daughter? Dr. Mensah was quiet for a moment. I would want to give her every possible advantage, but I would also want to be alive to raise her. How long can we wait? Every day we wait increases your risk of seizures, stroke, organ damage, but it also gives the baby's lungs more time to develop. Dr. Mensah met her eyes. I can't make this decision for you, Emma, but I can tell you that whatever you choose, we'll do everything in our power to protect you both. Robert squeezed her hand. What do you want to do? Emma thought about her father, how he'd spent his last weeks planning for her future instead of grieving his own ending, how he'd used every moment he had left to make sure she would be okay. We wait, she said. As long as it's safe, I want to give her every chance. Dr. Mensah nodded. Then we admit you tonight. Strict bed rest, constant monitoring, and Emma, no stress. Whatever's happening in the outside world, it stays outside. Emma laughed bitterly. I just exposed my family's secrets on national television. A woman who tried to destroy me was arrested tonight. My ex-husband confessed to helping cover up interference with my father's medical care. And you're telling me no stress. I'm telling you that your daughter's life depends on it. Dr. Mensah's voice was gentle but firm. Everything else can wait. Right now, the only thing that matters is the 2 of you. The first day passed slowly. Emma lay in the hospital bed, monitors beeping around her, her phone confiscated by Robert, who insisted she needed to disconnect. The world will survive without you for a few days. The foundation is running smoothly. The press coverage from the conference is overwhelmingly positive. Brittany's arrest is dominating the news cycle. He set a stack of books on her bedside table. Your job right now is to rest. I don't know how to rest. I don't know how to stop. Then learn, because your daughter is watching. Robert smiled. Even from in there, she's watching how her mother handles adversity. Emma placed her hand on her belly. She's going to think her mother handles adversity by panicking and obsessing. She's going to think her mother handles adversity by surviving. That's the Sullivan way. At 4:30 p.m. on the second day, Emma had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Chen, her father's old colleague from the elementary school, appeared in the doorway carrying a Tupperware container. The nurses tried to stop me. Mrs. Chen marched in like she owned the place. I told them I've been sneaking into places I don't belong for 63 years and I wasn't about to stop now. Mrs. Chen, how did you know I was here? Your cousin called me. Said you needed someone who remembered your daddy. The old woman sat down heavily in the visitor's chair. I brought his favorite, beef stew, made it the same way he liked it for 35 years. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I can't eat that. Hospital diet. The hospital diet is garbage. 1 bite won't kill you. Mrs. Chen pressed the container into her hands. Your daddy would have wanted you to eat something that tasted like home." Emma took a small bite. The taste hit her like a wave of memory. Comfort. Safety. Her father's tiny apartment. Sunday dinners when the world felt manageable. "He talked about you all the time," Mrs. Chen continued. "Every morning in that break room, first thing he'd say was, 'My Emma did this,' or 'My Emma said that.' You were his whole world." "I miss him so much." "Of course you do. That's how it's supposed to be." Mrs. Chen reached over and took her hand. "But here's what I've learned in 78 years of living: the people we love don't really leave us. They just change form. They become the voice in our head telling us to be brave. They become the strength we didn't know we had. They become the stories we tell our children." Emma's hand went to her belly. "I wish he could have met her." "He already has, honey. He's been with her from the first heartbeat, and he'll be with her long after we're all gone." Mrs. Chen stood up. "Now eat that stew and get some rest. That baby needs a strong mama, and you're not going to be strong if you don't eat." She left as abruptly as she'd arrived. Emma ate the entire container. On day 3, Emma's blood pressure stabilized. "This is good news," Dr. Mensah reported at her 7:15 a.m. check-in. "The medication is working. The baby's heart rate is strong. If we can keep things stable for another week, we'll have passed the critical window." "A week?" Emma breathed out slowly. "I can do a week. One day at a time. That's all anyone can do." At 2:33 p.m., Robert arrived with news she didn't expect. "Derek's mother came to see me." Emma's stomach tightened. "Sandra, what did she want?" "She wanted to apologize. To you through me." Robert sat down, his expression thoughtful. "She said she's been thinking about what you said. About Derek being exactly what she raised him to be. She said you were right." Sandra Mitchell admitted she was wrong. She admitted she failed her son, that she taught him to value the wrong things, that she pushed him toward ambition instead of integrity. Robert paused. "She also said she wants a chance to be a real grandmother, not for Derek's sake, for the baby's." Emma didn't know what to feel. Anger, suspicion, hope. "What do you think?" "I think people can change. I've seen it happen." Robert met her eyes. "Your father walked away from everything he knew because he believed love was more important than legacy. Derek confessed and turned over evidence that will put Brittany away for years. Sandra is asking for redemption instead of demanding it. That doesn't erase what they did. No, it doesn't." Robert leaned forward. "But it gives you a choice. You can hold on to the anger. Build walls. Teach your daughter that the world is full of people who will hurt her. Or you can show her something different. Show her that grace is possible. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means choosing not to carry the weight anymore." Emma looked down at her belly. "My father forgave the Sullivan family. They disowned him, cut him off, tried to erase him from the family history. And he spent 35 years quietly helping them anyway. Donating to their charities anonymously, sending birthday cards they never acknowledged. Why? Because he said hatred was too heavy to carry. He said the only person it hurt was him." Emma's voice cracked. "I thought he was being weak. I thought forgiveness was surrender. But he wasn't weak. He was the strongest person I've ever known." "So what do you want to do about Sandra?" Emma thought about it for a long moment. "Tell her. Tell her she can visit. After the baby is born. One chance. If she wastes it, that's it." Robert nodded. "I'll pass along the message." At 6:47 p.m. on day 4, everything changed. Emma was dozing when the first pain hit. A sharp, sudden clenching that stole her breath. She pressed the call button. A nurse appeared within seconds. "I'm having contractions." The nurse checked the monitors. Her face tightened. "I'll get Dr. Mensah." The next hour was chaos. Emma's blood pressure spiked to 180 over 110. The baby's heart rate dropped. Machines screamed. Voices shouted orders she couldn't understand. Dr. Mensah appeared at her side at 7:52 p.m. Emma, we need to deliver now. The baby is in distress. Your body is shutting down. We don't have a choice anymore. It's too soon. We were supposed to have another week. We don't have a week. We have minutes. Dr. Mensah gripped her hand. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then let's go meet your daughter. They wheeled her to the operating room at 8:03 p.m. Robert was there somehow, scrubbed in, holding her hand. I'm not supposed to be in here, he admitted. I threatened to buy the hospital if they didn't let me stay. You can't buy a hospital. I can buy 3 hospitals, but let's not talk about money right now. He squeezed her hand. You're about to become a mother, Emma. Your father would be so proud. I'm scared. I know, but you're also the strongest person I've ever met. You survived everything that tried to break you. This is just one more thing to survive. The anesthesiologist appeared. Explained the procedure. Something about a spinal block, about pressure, but not pain, about staying calm. Emma barely heard any of it. All she could think about was her daughter, her tiny, too early daughter, who was fighting just like her mother had fought. At 8:17 p.m., Dr. Mensah made the first incision. Emma felt pressure, not pain, just like they'd promised. Robert held her hand and didn't look away. Almost there, Dr. Mensah said. Just a few more seconds. And then at 8:23 p.m. on a Thursday night in November, Lily Rose Sullivan came into the world. She didn't cry at first. The silence stretched for an eternity, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Emma couldn't breathe. Then a sound, small, fierce, furious. Her daughter was crying. Her daughter was alive. She's beautiful, Robert whispered. Emma, she's perfect. They held her up just for a moment so Emma could see, tiny, red, wrinkled, the most perfect thing Emma had ever seen. Hi, baby girl, Emma's voice broke. I've been waiting my whole life for you. Then the NICU team swept in, took her daughter away to the warmers and monitors and all the machinery that would keep her safe. Is she okay? Emma asked. Is she going to be okay? She's small, but she's fighting. Dr. Mensah smiled, just like her mother. The next hours blurred together. Recovery room, more monitors, updates from the NICU. Lily was 3 pounds 14 ounces, small but viable. Her lungs were developed enough to breathe on their own with just a little help. Her heart was strong. Her will to live was stronger. At 11:45 p.m., they finally let Emma see her. Robert wheeled her to the NICU in a hospital wheelchair. She was still weak, still drugged, still processing what had happened. But nothing could have kept her from her daughter. Lily lay in an incubator surrounded by wires and tubes so small she fit in one hand. You can touch her, the nurse said. Through the holes in the side. She knows your voice. She's been listening to it for 8 months. Emma reached through and placed her finger against her daughter's palm. Lily's tiny hand closed around it. Hey, sweetheart. Emma's tears fell freely. It's me. It's Mama. I'm here. Lily's eyes opened, not really seeing, not yet, but somehow impossibly finding her mother anyway. I'm going to tell you about your grandfather. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. He was the best man I ever knew. He loved you before you were born. He planned for you, provided for you, and he would have moved mountains to hold you just once. The monitors beeped steadily, life measured in numbers and sounds. You have his stubbornness. I can already tell. You weren't supposed to survive tonight, but you did, because Sullivans don't give up. Emma smiled through her tears. That's your first lesson, Lily Rose. Whatever life throws at you, you keep fighting. You keep surviving. You keep rising. Robert stood behind her silent. When Emma finally looked up, she saw tears on his face too. Your uncle is crying, Emma told Lily. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin his reputation. Robert laughed, wiping his eyes. Worth it. The days that followed were hard but hopeful. Lily grew stronger every day, gained weight, hit milestones, proved over and over that she was her mother's daughter. Emma stayed in the hospital for a week, then moved into a nearby apartment so she could be close to the NICU. Robert handled everything else. The foundation, the press, the legal aftermath of Brittany's arrest. He built a wall around Emma and Lily, protecting them from everything that could wait. At 3:15 p.m. on day 12, Emma received an unexpected email. It was from a lawyer she didn't recognize, representing the estate of James David Montgomery, her mother's first husband, the one who had died in prison decades ago. Ms. Sullivan, I am writing to inform you that during the settling of Mr. Montgomery's estate, documents were discovered that may be relevant to your family. These documents include letters written to your mother during their marriage, as well as a journal that Mr. Montgomery kept until his death. In this journal, he expressed deep remorse for his treatment of your mother and his understanding of why she left. He also expressed hope that she had found happiness. I realize this may be difficult information to process, but I felt you should know that despite everything he died, knowing he had wronged her and wishing her well. If you would like to receive these documents, please let me know. Emma stared at the email for a long time. Her mother's abuser, the monster she'd fled, the man whose shadow had shaped her entire life. He had regretted it. In the end, even he had understood. She replied, "Send everything." On day 18, Lily came home. 4 pounds, 2 ounces. Still small, still fragile, but strong enough to leave the machines behind. Emma carried her daughter into the penthouse apartment she'd barely had time to make a home. Robert had decorated while she was at the hospital, yellow and white. Lily's room was exactly what Emma would have chosen. "Welcome home, baby girl." Emma held Lily against her chest. "This is where you live now. This is where you're safe." She walked to the window, showing Lily the city stretched out below. "See that? That's New York. Your great-great-grandfather helped build it. Your grandfather gave it all up for love. And you're going to change it." Emma kissed her daughter's forehead. "Whatever you want to be, whoever you want to become, you have the power to make it happen. Not because of the money, because of who you are." Lily yawned and fell asleep against her mother's chest. Emma smiled. For the first time in months, she felt peace. 1 year later, Emma stood in the auditorium of Lincoln Elementary School. 500 people filled the seats: teachers, donors, community members, journalists. On the wall behind her, a bronze plaque gleamed in the light. The William Sullivan Community Center, dedicated to the memory of a man who mopped these floors for 35 years and never stopped believing that every child deserved a chance. Emma stepped up to the microphone. "1 year ago, I lost my father. I lost my marriage. I lost everything I thought I knew about my life." She looked out at the crowd. "But I gained something too. I gained the truth about who my father really was. Not just a janitor, not just a secret billionaire, but a man who chose love over money, service over status, kindness over power." She paused, collecting herself. This community center is his legacy. Free tutoring for kids who are struggling, job training for parents who need a second chance, meals for families who don't know where their next dinner is coming from. In its first year, this center has helped over 3,000 people. 3,000 lives changed because one man believed that everyone deserves dignity. Emma's eyes found Robert in the front row. He was holding Lily, who was waving her tiny hands at something only she could see. "My daughter will grow up knowing her grandfather's story. She'll know that he gave up everything for love. She'll know that he spent his life serving others when he could have spent it serving himself. And she'll know that the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they give." Emma smiled. "My name is Emma Sullivan. My father was a janitor and a billionaire. My mother was a survivor. And I am proof that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going." The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Emma found a quiet moment alone. She stood in front of her father's portrait mounted in the community center's main hallway. The same portrait she'd seen in Sullivan Tower, that young man with kind eyes who'd given up everything for love. "I did it, Daddy." She touched the frame. "I built something beautiful, just like you asked." Lily fussed in Robert's arms across the room. Emma smiled. "And I found my greatest treasure, just like you found yours." She turned away from the portrait and walked toward her daughter. Behind her, she could have sworn she felt something warm, a presence, a blessing, a final goodbye. But when she looked back, there was only the portrait. And the smile on her father's face seemed a little wider than before. That night, Emma sat in Lily's nursery at 2:33 a.m. Her daughter was sleeping peacefully finally on a normal schedule after months of uncertainty. Emma watched her breathe, in and out, the rhythm of life continuing. Her phone buzzed softly, a text from an unknown number. "Emma, it's Derek. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm doing better. I got a job in Seattle, nothing fancy. I'm working at a nonprofit that helps homeless veterans. The pay is terrible, but it feels right. I'm trying to become the kind of man your father was, the kind who serves instead of takes. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you changed me, you and Lily. You showed me what really matters. Take care of yourself. And tell Lily, tell her I'm sorry I wasn't better. Maybe someday I will be." Emma read the message 3 times. Then she typed back, "I'm glad you're finding your way. Lily will know who you are. The good parts, the bad parts, all of it. And someday, if you've really changed, maybe she'll want to meet you. But that's her choice to make, not mine, not yours, hers." She sent the message. Her phone buzzed again almost immediately. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." She turned off her phone and looked back at her daughter. "You're going to have a complicated life, baby girl," Emma whispered. "People are going to try to define you by where you came from, by who your parents are, by how much money sits in your trust fund." Lily stirred slightly, then settled. "But here's what I know: you are not your circumstances. You are not your family's mistakes. You are not the sum of everything that happened before you were born." Emma leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead. "You are Lily Rose Sullivan. You are the daughter of a survivor and the granddaughter of a hero. You are the heir to a legacy of love. And your story is just beginning." She stood up and walked to the window. The city spread out below her, millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of stories, still being written. Her father had walked away from all of this, once believing that love mattered more than legacy. He had been right, but Emma was going to prove something different. She was going to prove that you could have both, that legacy could be built on love, that power could be used for good, that money was only as corrupt as the people who held it. The Sullivan Foundation had helped 5,000 women in its first year. 5,000 lives changed. 5,000 stories rewritten. Next year, it would be 10,000. And the year after that, 20. Her father had planted a seed. Emma was going to grow a forest. She looked back at her sleeping daughter one more time. "Sleep well, baby girl. Tomorrow we change the world." She walked out of the nursery, leaving the door slightly open so she could hear if Lily cried. In the hallway, she passed the photo she'd hung last week. Her father holding her as a baby the same way she held Lily now. The same love in his eyes. The same fierce protective joy. "Thank you, Daddy." She touched the photo. "For everything." Then she walked to her bedroom, lay down in her bed, and for the first time in over a year, slept without dreams. The storm was over. The woman who had emerged from it was not the same woman who had entered. She was stronger, wiser, more certain of who she was and what she was meant to do. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, William Sullivan watched his daughter and smiled. He had given her everything he had. She had become everything he'd hoped. and the legacy they built together would outlast them both. Because in the end, it was never about the money. It was never about the revenge. It was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about one simple truth that William Sullivan had understood from the moment he first held his daughter in his arms. Love is the only inheritance that truly matters. Emma Sullivan had inherited $5 billion, but her real wealth was measured in the lives she touched, the woman she became, and the daughter she would raise to carry the light forward. That was the Sullivan legacy. That was her father's gift. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.